Yeah.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for coming out. My name is Artur Oliveira. I'm on the Toxic Google team, and I'm very excited today to welcome Nick Balla and Courtney Burns to a Zagat Guest Chef Series. Nick and Courtney are the co-executive chefs of Bar Tartine in San Francisco's Mission District. Now, Tartine is a very celebrated restaurant in the city because it uses a menu that is really hard to classify, but as these guys like to say, it is easy to describe. So there's lots of very interesting influences, Eastern European, Japanese, lots of other different parts of the world. So if you could all please help me welcome Nick and Courtney for our Guest Chef Series today.
Thanks for having us. So we're here today. We just finished a cookbook, so we're kind of celebrating that. And we there's a lot of different stuff in there. Kind of the main point of that and what we do at the restaurant is based on how we make things. So we process most of the stuff in house at the restaurant, for all the way from the dairy program to like cured meats, drying of things like fruit or paprika powder. Really, we try to make whatever we can in-house for use for our recipes. And so the first huge chunk of the cookbook's based on how to make some of the things. By all means, you don't have to, but it's just kind of a fun possibility. We were thinking about what to make here today, and we were thinking, do we go fancy and try to do tweezer food, or
which we don't really know how to do.
Right. So that was a bad idea. Instead, we're doing a couple of the things that are our favorite things to eat, all-time favorite things to eat. There's a salad that we're making with sweet potato and avocado, pickled green walnuts, which we process in large batches every spring when the walnuts are underripe, and we'll do 90, 120 liters of those every spring hopefully to last the whole year. That salad's kind of based on one of Courtney's favorite snacks, which was what was it originally?
It's like
avocado
yogurt and sweet potato with avocado. Really, kind of like a refrigerator mishmash. A lot of times, our food is inspired that way, where we're making something that we really are craving in the moment and fulfilling that craving. We eat what we feel like eating, and then figure out if it works and if it's delicious. Which, if we're going to go 50-50 on that one, how we can transition it into working in the restaurant. How can we serve it to you guys so you feel like you're getting a restaurant dish and not something that I pulled out of the refrigerator at home. So this dish was actually the follow-up of something like that. When we were writing the book, we spent more time at home than we normally ever do, just because we could actually focus on the book a little bit. We would kind of split our days up and write, which was a very interesting process. So this came together one day while writing the book, actually, and had lunch. I told Nick I had this great lunch today, and then we kind of turned into this salad. It definitely was not this salad to begin with, but it was the kind of inspiring moment to create the salad. And that's how a lot of our food is created, either from flavor memories or foods that we've just eaten that we want to recreate or kind of evolve. And so that's how that one came about.
We ended up adding, she'll go over the ingredients more
once we,
as we're getting into it, but homemade feta cheese, and then those green walnuts and mung bean sprouts, which we sprout at the restaurant. It's really fun. This mess here is kapušnica, is what the Slovak word for it is. It's always been my personal favorite thing to eat at home for many years. My dad always made this when I was growing up, and he lived in Central Europe, but learned it there. And so in Slovakia, they make it for Christmas, but they also make it all year. And there are thousands of different possible ways to do it, based on what's available, where you live, what you like. So you can really kind of evolve it to your taste. But the point of it is kind of agrodolce, and it's always got spice, sour, sweet, acidity, so that kind of notion of just a lot of flavor. And it's a really satisfying and simple thing to make at home. Always has a base of sauerkraut, usually has some type of cured meat. Often at Christmas time they don't actually serve actual meat protein, it'll just be like a meat stock, but usually dried fruit, which brings out dried and fresh fruit, which gives it sweetness. Mushrooms, earth, and then we like peppers and tomatoes and all different kinds of things in here. We're gonna start making this one first because it takes a little while to simmer everything. The recipe that we have in the cookbook, and it says we encourage people to be use things that you like and what's available. So there's a recipe for it, but we also encourage people to think outside the box and just kind of use things that they like. You can also do things in stages and kind of time it out so that the potatoes cook just right, or you can dump it all in the pot, which is always the way we do it at home, and it turns out just great. So let's get started.
This soup is really, first of all, again, back to our house refrigerator. When Nick takes a day off, this is usually what I'll find next day, which is usually the day I take off, in the refrigerator afterwards. It's definitely the comfort food of our house as a result of it being Nick's favorite food. He can eat this whole pot pretty much of this soup. But we dump everything in here, but it really, when we make it at the restaurant, we'll often, like Nick was saying, do it in stages. And what that does in a lot of the food that we cook at the restaurant is really based on layering lots of flavors. So sometimes we'll put certain pork products in first to pull out the fat and then start adding and blooming spices. But like he said, it's just as delicious like this. One of the things in the cookbook that we really encourage people to do is play, and we want people to cook the food that we have in the book. So if we were to give you like 15 steps on a soup that can turn out just as delicious by tossing it all into one bowl, we encourage you just to kind of go for it.
So we put in bacon, potatoes, and the dried sausage first. So it's kind of like a dried, in Hungary we made versions of this. Also, my dad lived there and we're Hungarian. It's this gulai sausage, so it's like a cold smoked, really dry, but like dried Spanish chorizo is perfect. That's what this is basically. And it really, it has a real distinct aroma, that dried paprika sausage.
A lot of cookbooks and recipes, if that's something that you read and follow a lot, you'll see people rendering bacon down to pull the fat out. And that is one way to work with bacon or cured pork products. Just by way of putting it in this way, we're creating heat, which will pull out some of that fat. But what we're doing is we're kind of making more of a luscious pork belly out of it. So instead of kind of crispy and extracting everything, we're going to leave it in there. It will seize a little bit just because of the heat, but it also allows us just to kind of leave the bacon nice and tender, different mouthfeel. We going for it on all this?
Get it.
Great. We like to use sweet onions. You'll notice in the grocery store sometimes you can just buy white onions, or you can buy kind of yellow sweet onions. I'm making a mess over here. We encourage the sweet onions because they don't have as sharp of an aroma. They work really well in soups and stews, and then raw as well. We eat a lot of raw onion in our world.
We're making a lot of soup.
We are making a lot of soup.
We always overcook.
It's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
So you guys have to stay here until it's gone today. So hopefully there's no pressing projects at the desk side. And while we're talking, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask, be interactive. You don't have to be shy with us. You can help us to attemptedly entertain you by entertaining us. So all of that is encouraged. There's sauerkraut that we just dumped in with some of the brine left on it. And the sauerkraut that we make at the restaurant is just cabbage, salt, and that's it. So we shave the cabbage, which opens up the cell walls, and that allows us to just dry salt it. So there's a couple different ways that you can brine ferment vegetables. There's many different ways. Two of the ones that we use a lot, these are apples, by the way, that are going in. We dry salt and we also brine ferment. So by dry salting it, sorry, I don't have a radar on this thing. We can extract the liquid from the vegetables by opening up all those cell walls for really juicy, watery vegetables. Things like whole beets or other things like that, which are larger, that we ferment, we then make a salt brine and pour over it. So this one has been dry salted, so nothing except for cabbage, salt on that one. And thyme, not with an H, but just like actual thyme. The stock is just it's like a blonde chicken stock, so unroasted bones, just gently simmered with whatever vegetables we had left over at the restaurant. I don't know if we're gonna fit in here. It's getting serious.
We got it. We got it.
I couldn't help but notice when you were cutting up the bacon, you kind of scraped the knife a little bit on the cutting board as you moved it aside.
Mm-hmm.
So prep techniques. I've heard some people say that it's really bad to kind of do that and it's bad practice, but that's kind of what I'm used to doing. What do you guys take on that?
I don't usually scrape it directly against the wood. A lot of times I'll just move things with it, but I mean you can always sharpen your knife. It's like it's there to be used.
So it doesn't make you a bad chef.
You tell me. I mean, I have no idea. If you think so, then we're all good.
No,
I don't think it does. There's so many schools of thought on how to use your knives and how to work with your tools. By all means, we should treat them with respect, but they are tools at the same time. I mean, hammers are meant to be used, knives are meant to be used, and so if I have a knife that's so delicate that I can't rub it across the board, it's probably not one that I should be using for that task. So we pick and choose our knives, depending on what we're doing with them.
Really to hear you say that.
There are no rules.
Yeah. And if someone kicks you out of their kitchen, then you can just go back to your own. It'll be more fun there anyways. But, I mean, definitely there are kind of the right tool for the job, and there are certain knives that are not to be used for opening plastic bags and things like that. Really any of them. Nick won't trust you on that one. He likes to use my knives for things like that.
Yep.
So we're going to put a hefty amount of garlic in here, because we really like garlic and we support the use of lots of allium. So just prepare yourselves. I think that's probably good. I think I should just go for it.
Anybody have any important face-to-face stuff today?
What's that?
Mine got canceled.
Perfect.
Lucky for them.
So will this end up being more like a stew?
A stew in so much that we're putting so much into it, but all of these things will also let off a lot of their own juices. So even though we're not starting with a huge amount of broth, the mushrooms are going to release juice and will create a stock kind of all on their own. So once it's all together, it will be a brothy dish, but it will have a fair amount of kind of vegetable in there as well. Do you want to go for the rest?
So the finally we'll put in some spice stuff. We usually process most of our spices in house. These are bay leaf that we dry at the restaurant, toasted caraway, and then we're gonna put some paprika. One of the most important ingredients in our larder. We got this paprika from. It's really important in Central European cooking, so we spent years looking for. Following the vein of wanting to process everything ourselves, we were looking for a pepper that we could grow in California that would produce a paprika that was of the quality of the European paprikas, because we hadn't tried anything in the United States or in this hemisphere that had been of that quality. So one year we planted 40 different types of paprika at a Scribe winery up in Sonoma.
Originally in our apartment.
Yeah, we started them in our apartment in the Mission at the time. Yeah. And then finally ended up finding one seed from a paprika plant from Hungary, which we spent a couple of months picking. It was a chili flake packet, so we ended up picking these flakes out and planting them. Over about a few years, we had a couple different farmers growing them for us. So now we're doing, a couple thousand kilos a year for powder, for paste, drying, just for using for lots of different things. We do a lot of chili paste, but super important ingredient. And it's great in this soup.
Is this one a mix of sweet and hot that you grabbed today?
Yeah, it's a little bit of heat, but the serranos that we put in here are also spicy. So tomatoes, we jarred those this last mid-fall when the tomatoes were kind of peaking. And the peppers, these are actually from some farmer friends in Fresno that are still finishing up with tomatoes and peppers.
They had green beans a couple weeks ago too.
Yeah.
Kind of their last.
And they're just harvesting cucumbers now, which is so strange in California how the seasons work. So this guy's gonna simmer for a while now, and I think we're just gonna let it go, and maybe we get into making some salad. Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions, comments about the soup? Did anyone grow up eating a sauerkraut soup or kind of a sweet and sour soup of this nature? No?
This is peasant food. It's the stuff we crave and really want to be eating a lot. I mean, and it gets better. You make a huge pot like this, it gets better in the fridge, or it gets better, after several days of just kind of sitting it. Everything breaks down and
Melds.
this is a meal with a chunk of bread. You don't need anything else. beer.
Meal for 100. I'm gonna just kind of cover it a little bit to get it rolling so that we have some soup to eat in a bit.
How did Bar Tartine come about, and like how do you guys still interact a lot with Tartine itself?
Do you want to talk on that, or do you want me to?
Bar Tartine started in 2006 or 2005,
I think
was it?
2005.
Yeah, Chad Robertson and Liz Pruitt, they own Tartine Bakery. Basically, nothing was really happening yet in the Mission. There was a lot of real estate available, and I think Bar Tartine was an empty business, and they were kind of almost forced into opening it. They were like, "This is, somebody has to put a restaurant here, and you guys are perfect for it." So they did, and it started out. They called it the Wine Bar, their wine bar, and that was kind of what they had it in their heads as. It was half the size it is now, and it was just kind of a creative space. Like they had like chefs in and out constantly. Like there was often that's a bad thing, but in this place it actually was, because it was kind of a creative space and people were just having fun there.
Mm-hmm.
I was cooking Japanese food, and Courtney was
I had gone on
doing
restaurant
everything.
hiatus.
Yeah. And Chad would come in. Chad Robertson would come into the place I was working at the time, and we got to know each other pretty well, and started talking about it. And he wanted to reconcept the place and start making whole grain breads, and I wanted to go with my Central European roots, and so it just kind of made sense to try it out. Courtney and I met. We started cooking there together, and
Well,
that
no,
was
we
about
didn't
4 years
start
ago.
cooking there together.
Right.
Nick started cooking there. I was doing other things, and then he asked me one day, as the story goes, to come and butcher a goat, and I never left.
yeah, I'd been there maybe a month, and
Yeah.
she came in one day and just didn't
Make
leave.
cheese,
Yep.
or just to start projects. Like we would always be talking about, all the dried spices that we wanted to do and all these things, and it just kind of made sense to start kind of a project kitchen there, and so that's what happened.
Yep.
Yeah, and we've been there, almost 4 years now. Yeah.
Are you guys involved with the new space, the new restaurant that's coming up?
We're not necessarily
Operationally involved.
Yeah, not operationally
We're going to sell
involved.
we're going to have some product, like so the paprika we were talking about. We'll probably have some spice mixes and preserved things, and
Yeah.
fermented chili paste over there, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's really a constant conversation with all of us, the chef that he's brought into, and kind of an idea, platform that we all work within and together on. But yeah, we're gonna keep ourselves at the restaurant. Yeah.
What will be the focus of the new place?
It's going to be a larger bakery space, so a lot more bread production, also larger pastry production, lots of canning, preserving, things like that can't really happen at the space on 18th Street because of the size limitations. And so it's just going to be larger format, wood-fired oven, and then also more food. So
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, much larger cafe space as well. Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Possibly teaching kitchen.
Yep.
To be determined, see what fits. Yep.
Toss some salad.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't mean it like that.
Oh no. So I'm gonna actually wash that knife. Can you grab that? So like Nick said, at the restaurant, we basically like to make things. It's kind of where we are jumping off point. So we create this larder at the restaurant that very much so dictates what we cook at the restaurant. So instead of thinking of a dish, we think of what we can, what do we have and how can we use it. So because of the larder we've been able to create over the last 4 years or so, it really gives us the opportunity to play with different ingredients. So like the green walnuts that originally when we first pickled them, we didn't know exactly what we were going to end up using them for. This salad, we were able to put them on here because we already had them made. So it wasn't like, oh, we should make this salad, and now we have to wait a year in order to do it because we didn't have the walnuts. So just to run through the ingredients a little bit, we have Japanese sweet potato, also called satsuma imo. It's the interior is a white color, very sweet. It sounds really ridiculous, but very sweet potato, different in aroma and texture, really kind of lustrous texture compared to some of the other ones. Avocado. This one is some of our house-made feta. So this one's water buffalo. Don't tell anyone. But it's water buffalo that we're getting. We pasteurize and then we age it for about 6 months. Sunflower sprouts, mung bean sprouts. We do a lot of sprouting at the restaurant for a couple reasons. One, because we like the texture that it creates, but it also allows us to not cook certain legumes and make all the nutrients a little more bioavailable. We can go more into detail of that if you guys want a little bit. Parsley, dill, and then these pickled green walnuts. Nick will tell you all about the process on those. We have a little bit of a lemon vinaigrette and a fennel oil. So another thing at the restaurant is that we don't use a lot of finishing oils. We make them. So we start with a base benign oil and then we infuse them.
Instead of extra virgin olive oil, we love extra virgin olive oil, but we'll often make things like sunchoke oil or fennel oil instead.
Just because it allows us to layer in kind of more flavors more specific to what we're doing. And then just a little bit of lemon that we'll toss with this. Do you want to talk about the walnuts?
So yeah, the green walnuts, they've kind of turned into our almost like an olive substitute at the restaurant. We make olives too, but for this salad, it's a slightly different thing. It's really a fun combination with this stuff. So like we were talking about, usually March or April every year, the walnuts, you guys have all seen walnuts on the tree. They have like the green husk around, so it's not actual just the nut with the hard shell that you see, but there's this whole fruit around the outside of it. So we're using the whole thing. It'd be like the shell of the walnut and the outer part. So this is the entire thing. So it's before the shell of the walnut gets hard. This is the time of year people will take them off the tree, start nocino, which is a liqueur that, when do
The
you...
Italians are famous for
What's the
Christmas
date?
liqueur.
There's one day when you're supposed to process it every year. It's like a tradition, and then
I don't know the
you don't
day.
use it until like November because it sits and oxidizes. But the pickled walnuts, we take them and we basically brine ferment them for about a month. So just salt brine, which leaches out tannins, starts to sour them and ferment them a little bit. But mainly it's getting rid of all those tannins that are in the skin of the walnut. It's really, really bitter. Acrid kind of flavor. So after that month or so of brining and kind of releasing their tannins, we'll put them in really mild vinegar brine. We've been using rice vinegar with no added aromatics really. We just first year we did it, we had sugar in it, but I don't think we've been doing any sweetening.
Nope.
It doesn't need it after. So. And that, even in vinegar, even though it's not a super active fermentation, there's still processes taking place. And the walnuts continue to break down and the flavor develops. So we don't usually end up using them until the sweet potatoes become available in the fall. So it's at least 6 months from the time we process them until we start using them, usually. And then we'll do, 120 liters, and this is the longest they've lasted this year. I think we did a bigger batch than we did.
bigger batch
but
this year, yeah.
they're usually gone in a couple of months, so we're lucky to still have them. So
They all get poked about 8 or 10 times before we start brining them so that some of that kind of the noxious flavors come out and then the brine goes in, so it kind of works from the inside out. But you can see the shape there, that's where the nut would be. So like that is the walnut, that you're going to eat on your carrot cake later. That would be where it lived. But when we get them, it's just either hollow or has just the inkling of like a little, almost like jelly on the inside. So.
What's the base of the salad? Is that
So we're gonna do, so these are the sweet potatoes, and so I've peeled this one. These have been gently roasted. They're roasted till they're just about tender, but not so soft that you could puree them. So we're gonna slice this up, which I'll do here in a second. We're gonna layer a base of sweet potato on the bottom, and then we're gonna slice up some avocado over the top. And then we have some sunflower sprouts and the mung, and we're just gonna kind of layer all of that in with the herbs. We're going to spread the vinaigrette around on top of that and a little bit of the oil. And then some of the fennel, which Nick's gonna marinate here with just a little bit of lemon and salt. And then a little bit of the walnuts, mainly for their brininess, but also for their salinity. So there are a lot of the salt that's actually in the salad. They're creating that sort of layering of flavor. And then we grate the feta, again, kind of the saltier component, all over the top of it with some coarse black pepper. So it's just kind of a sandwich salad. Just kind of layers in. You getting some heat over there?
it smells crazy.
Can you guys smell that?
Is the house feta less salty than kind of traditional feta because you use the water buffalo?
No, I mean, even we do cow, we do water buffalo, we do sheep. It really just kind of depends on what we're working with in the moment. But the salinity comes into the when we're brining it. So the cheese itself isn't salted kind of on the curd. It's the brine that we put over it. So the first brining of it is a super saturated brine, which is like 28 ounces of salt per gallon of water, which is a fair bit of salt. So we do that for 24 hours, and then we pour a completely unsalted brine over it again to kind of dilute it. And then from there we just let it age. So the milk itself isn't necessarily imparting any salt one way or the other. So we're just going to cut these nice and
If anybody
thin.
wants to smell where this is starting, you're welcome to pass it. It's a little bit warm, not too bad.
So you can see that you can still slice through these. Like if you were to cook them all the way, it would smash. So we take them till they're just kind of tender on the outside, but still you feel like they're a little bit al dente. You can pass them around if you want to see where they're at. They just start to shrivel, but not so much that you can kind of push through them. This allows us to layer them in and also just have a little bit of tooth left on them still.
What got you guys started on preservation, or putting so much emphasis on preservation?
We grew up with kind of Eastern Central European. We're both from the Midwest, and so our family was kind of. Her side was like chopped liver and a lot of pickles and
Russian, Lithuanian, Polish.
Lithuanian. I had the Hungarian, German, Polish, that whole thing going on. Grandparents that made sauerkraut and had a lot of pickles and made soups and.
Borscht. My grandma was
Yeah.
making lots of like whole beet borscht and things like that.
My mom was a hippie, so she always had a lot of
Totally.
fermented stuff around, like a lot of like lime pickle, like Indian lime pickle, and she always made sauerkraut. She had a huge garden, so we just kind of grew up loving spice and sour and all that stuff. So we couldn't cook in a restaurant and not have those flavors, because otherwise we get bored.
We both grew up like eating whole lemons as well, which your dentist will tell you is a really bad idea and is a really bad idea.
Might have been the candy, actually. I was
Might have
thinking
been
about
the
that
candy.
the other day.
Also true.
So Nick, you mentioned that you worked in a Japanese restaurant.
Uh-huh.
So do you guys pickle or preserve with all of the various techniques from other cultures?
Oh, yeah.
Countries,
Huge. Japan, we still have a lot of Japanese influence in our food. We use kombu seaweed, and dashi is like one of our main ingredients. Almost every one of our stocks will use dashi, and we often make this soup with dashi at the beginning, with
The
kombu
fruit
at
soups
least.
even.
Because kombu seaweed, it's the base of dashi and a lot of the Japanese flavors that you make goulash at home, or you make, cream of mushroom soup, whatever you're making. If you put a piece of kombu in when you start, it's releasing umami, it's releasing glutamates, building flavor. So there's a lot of ways to add flavor, to borrow flavors from other cuisines without making them taste too weird or fusiony. A lot of these things make sense together. So we use, at our restaurant, we use sake, we make koji, which is kind of the base of miso. We make miso. We're playing with soy sauce.
All the paprika paste, but in different veins. Some that kind of nod to the Middle East, some that nod, more to Hungary, and then certain parts of Asia. We're inspired by, pretty much foods from around the world, but a lot of our cooks are from different places as well, and so they'll be like, well, my mom used to make this, or my grandmother made this, and we're like, wow, that sounds great. We have no idea how to do it, but just from hearing what they're talking about, we'll take what we have locally and just play.
Yep.
So I'm gonna, did you marinate this guy? Is it ready to go?
I put some lemon and a little bit of salt on the fennel, yep.
Do you want to build the salad, or do you want me to?
Go for it.
I'm gonna build a salad.
I'm gonna play with this.
When it comes to building new recipes for the restaurant, you mentioned that you like to play, you use whatever you have access to locally and maybe what you guys have produced at the restaurant. But can you talk a little bit about the process of, you have the ingredients, you probably have a direction you want to go in. Can you talk about the step after that? Like, how do you actually get started on that recipe?
Oh, yes. It's a very multi-layered kind of question. A lot of it comes down to kind of what's already on the menu, for one. So if we're working with, we don't like to double up on ingredients on a menu. So if we're really excited about carrots, we'll have to pull them off from somewhere else and then find a way you know, to kind of reincorporate another ingredient. So a lot of times it's kind of like playing Jenga. So you're moving things around kind of in this way, trying to get them to all fit together and not having too many things that necessarily completely overlap, but everything that just overlaps enough to make sense together. Our menu is very much set up in a shared plate format. So you probably at any given time have 5 or 6 hopefully dishes on the table that you may be eating together. So we always try and keep in mind what people are kind of be eating at the same time, so there's not too much dissonance. Can be good, but not like overt dissonance. It's good when things kind of play off each other and you have like, you know, really sour and then really, you know, gently sweet over here, something that's really creamy. But when creating new dishes, a lot of the time it's, I mean, for us, sometimes it just starts with a conversation, or like, hey, I happened to cook carrots this way yesterday and it turned out really great, and then it's like, oh, and it spawns this whole conversation. Or we tasted something and that flavor was something we want to highlight. So it kind of, I don't know if I'm answering your question completely, but we draw from many different places, and having 2 people kind of working together on a menu can be really challenging. So kind of we also ping pong back and forth ideas, and then, I mean, at some point one person has to kind of make a decision. It's not always, it's sometimes really hard to make it a collaborative effort, so we kind of divide and conquer ourselves a lot of the time. But more often than not, we start with what do we want to eat. So like, what sounds delicious? And so we don't go from like, okay, so I want to make this plate that looks like a garden. Like, that is never, there's nothing wrong with that sort of approach. It's just not how we think. We'll be like, well, what do we want to do with this? And then, you know, it ends up on a plate. We don't go the other way around. So we create from flavor and then find out how it's going to look here versus the other way around. And then we also just kind of draw from our spices and kind of pull from there. So do you want to expand on that?
I would add that the ingredients really, it's kind of what you were saying, the ingredients really dictate what we're going to put on the menu. So we hate the notion of we're going to the market and we're going to buy this and it's going to be, we're going to make this with it. Exactly, you know, with the pre-planned notion of what the ingredients are going to be like. Because you get to the market or you get to the store and the stuff's different. So you say you want to make a tomato salad, you get to Whole Foods or wherever you go, and like, the tomatoes are terrible. Don't make a tomato salad anyway. Make something else. Don't, you know, always have options. So a lot of the times we'll go to the market and we'll say we want to get something to pickle, and we'll see somebody with a deal on turnips because they've just pulled up their whole field. They want to plow over the rest of the turnips and plant something else for, you know, the early winter or the early spring planting. So the fall turnips need to come out. Our buddies will have huge bins of turnips for 50 cents a pound. Great. We didn't know we were going to get them today, but all of a sudden we have 300 pounds of turnips.
Or
we get back to
500
the restaurant.
pounds of winter melon. Oops.
Where's that picture? These things are insane.
Nick went to the market alone last week
Yes.
and came back with like 1,000 pounds of vegetables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the turnips we'll get back and we'll open them up, and we're not automatically going to make a turnip salad with them. We don't know if they're going to be sweet. We taste them at the market, but like we don't know how they're going to end up after they're pickled. So a lot of the times we'll finish processing something, so we'll pickle all the turnips and brine ferment them for a couple weeks, and by the time they're done, what they taste like will kind of determine what we use them for. So we'll often have a huge project that's finished. It's been doing whatever for a couple months. We'll taste it and then develop a dish with that after. Not having a determined plan for them.
I was going to ask, where do you shop? Unless
Safeway.
that's some sort of secret.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot of relationships directly with farmers. We have 2 different sets of folks that are just growing for us.
Exclusively for us.
Exclusively, yeah. And then there's one example of these girls, and they actually sell to a couple of our friends' restaurants too now, but they're just farming in the Mission. They have this huge lot in the outer Mission, Little City Gardens, and they're growing incredible stuff that's climate appropriate organically out there in outer Mission. Kale and chard and lots of herbs, and they do a lot of flowers and really, really awesome stuff. And then the people that do most of our paprika are up in Napa, Justin and Mindy, Full Table Farms, and they're just growing for us now. And we're basically getting into a system with them now where we don't even order anymore. We just say, just show up or they kind of let us know what they're going to have. But it's really, our approach is we change the menu so often that it's fun to just kind of say, bring us what you need to harvest, what's best, and then make stuff.
Most days it's fun, except when everyone
it's
happens
not
to
always
deliver
fun.
on the same day.
Yep.
Then the follow-up was, where do you put 1,000 pounds of melons? Like,
All over the restaurant.
Everywhere. There's still,
Centerpieces.
Caitlin can attest to this, one of our sous chefs is in the back helping us out today with the food that we're going to plate for you guys. But yeah, it ends up everywhere, like literally. It's a problem. We have a vegetable buying problem, like we do, and we're known for, with a lot of our farmers, they'll call us and be like, we have 300 pounds of like B grade, whatever you guys want. And we're like, yeah, sure.
B
And
grade
then-
is like magic to our ears because
Yeah.
it's ugly on the outside and beautiful on the inside.
As long as it's delicious, it's fine. We can work with it. And we really like to do that. Granted, I mean, part of the reason is we get a great deal on it, which makes it really easy for us to buy things in 500, 600 pound increments where it may not be, you go to the Ferry Plaza Market, you're not necessarily going to get 500 pounds of something for cheap. I mean, you're going to like spend half your paycheck on it. But we do shop at those markets to kind of finish up on your topic. We have about 6 or 7 farmers that, like Nick was saying, that we work with weekly. Then there's the Civic Center Market that we like to go to Wednesdays and Sundays. And then there's the Ferry Plaza Market on the weekends. Saturday's kind of the best, but they also have Tuesday, Thursday. Just depends on what we need. And then there's weeks where we don't have time to go to the market at all. And we're lucky enough to have a lot of our farmers that deliver directly to us. I'm gonna keep building this while we talk. So this is a little bit of fennel oil, so we're just gonna wet these guys a little bit. And this vinaigrette is lemon juice, dill. It has a touch of honey in it and it's just a little bit of oil, so it's pretty bright. And then we add in the other oil to kind of balance it as we go, but it's not like an oil vinaigrette. It's more just kind of like a.
Can you guys see what's going on over
Thinner.
here?
Yeah, I'm just layering. So the sweet potatoes are down. I've got a little bit of oil on them, a little bit of vinaigrette. Now we're going to layer in some avocados. We like lots of avocados.
To what degree do business matters play a role when you guys are talking about ingredients or dishes or anything like that at the restaurant?
You mean like food cost? You mean like business
Cost
matters in that way, or?
marketability, like making sure that people will actually, enjoy the dish and things like that? Because maybe there's dishes you guys love, but
We sit right on the border of people's comfort zone, and
In many
luckily,
ways. Sorry.
luckily, right, that is accurate. Luckily, it's a very receptive customer base, not just in San Francisco, but even in the Mission, even more specifically where we live. So we're really fortunate to have that. And just in general, people's attitudes about dining and expectations have changed so much recently in the last just several years. I don't think this could have worked 10 years ago, or it would have been challenging, but we have a mainstream audience, and for the most part, people get it and are open to what we're doing, even if we can't even explain what it is we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of time it is managing people's expectations. If we can have, either if we're talking to a table or our front of the house is talking to a table, if we can have them create something that is based in something they're familiar with or comfortable with, then a lot of the times we can kind of win back the skepticism that we sometimes get. So if we explain to people like where these ideas of the dishes are coming from, and food is very nostalgia based, so hopefully we're creating flavors that may be new as far as how they're put together, but like everyone's had a sweet potato and an avocado and an olive. It may be a pickled green walnut, but it really tastes like an olive. So if we can kind of explain to people in this way, and not to dumb it down, but just to create like a sense of comfort for people. I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel. We're not really doing anything super cerebral or crazy. Like we're making you sauerkraut stew, and like we serve it at the restaurant. It'll just have like a big blood sausage on it too, probably. And so it really is managing people's expectations and figuring out how to create comfort for people and what dishes are going to make them comfortable. And then from there, once they kind of trust you a little bit more, you can bring them in and have them taste things. But some of our food might be seen as weird or different, but hopefully it doesn't taste like something that's like so out there that has no basis in like either reality or some sort of flavor that maybe you've tasted before. Like we find our biggest successes are when someone's like, this tastes like something I had when I was blah, blah, blah. And we're like, oh, food nostalgia. Like, there's nothing more successful than that. So if we're creating food from that standpoint, we find that oftentimes it has a better chance of being successful. Does that make sense? So just to bring you guys back over here, we have the fennel, which Nick kind of marinated with a little bit of lemon and salt, and it just kind of tenderizes it. We've layered that over the sweet potatoes and the avocado. We've got a little bit of vinaigrette on there, and then we're going to layer some of these walnuts on there. I'm going to pull them apart a little. They can be really intense if you eat too many at once, and what we're doing is we're creating that kind of salt base. We're creating that layer of flavor in there and some of the acidity. So break them up so that you kind of get one with every bite. And then these mung bean sprouts. Does anyone sprout at home or familiar with sprouting? Yeah? What do you sprout at home? Nice. Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
That sounds great. Anyone else? It's super easy, which is great, and really, really healthy, and a nice kind of textural element that you can layer into things. You can also cook with them too. So any seeds and different legumes like that, they're dormant when they're dry. And so what we're doing is waking them up and asking them to give us their nutrients. And it sounds super hippie, but that is what's happening. So when we start to feed them water, we're mimicking nature, and we're asking them to start growing. And what that does is they release the nutrients that they would need in order to start to grow, and then we get to eat them.
So how would you sprout them? Would you put them on, like, would you wet like a paper towel down?
For the most part, most of the things we do get soaked at least overnight, and then depending on first of all how much we want to sprout it. So these guys are sprouted. These sunflower sprouts are sprouted, into long shoots. Depending on what we're looking for, like these mung sprouts just barely have tails, so these will get soaked overnight, and then we'll just rinse them a couple times a day for 2 to 3 days, and then they're ready to eat. They're just starting to form tails. So there's a number of different ways you can approach it, but usually all start with a soak and then rinsing until they're done.
So you'll see that we're just tearing the herbs up here, which again, like we were talking about before, running your knife over tearing herbs, some kitchens you would totally be kicked out of. But we're just opening up, the flavor, and we don't really need them to be finely diced or anything like that. They just tear them, like, it works great. But yeah, someone else would definitely tell you that is illegal.
Question, do you guys have any issues with the health department or any of that kind of stuff with fermenting and sprouting or any of those things? It's all good to go?
We hope so.
So far so good.
We're lucky to have a really cool guy that's doing it. Our particular inspector has really been open-minded to. I think that we would probably get shut down in New York for that.
Yeah.
They're pretty tyrannical over there, but for the most part, like fermented stuff like sauerkraut, there are no documented instances of foodborne illness from a lactic ferment. Mm-hmm. You don't get sick from sauerkraut. It just does not happen. And people, we have an interesting relationship with this stuff where people, even when we started doing kimchi, I remember making kimchi and being terrified I was gonna poison somebody 10 years ago, whatever it was, and it's just not going to happen. People get sick usually. I mean, I'm not saying it's completely impossible, but as far as from pathogens, it doesn't happen from brine ferments.
You're more likely to get sick from the raw cabbage than you are the fermented cabbage.
Yeah.
So if there's something on the raw vegetable, you'll hear people getting sick from lettuce.
You're going to get more than likely get food poisoning from improper hand washing of somebody's romaine salad,
right.
Or you hear about these different scares from different huge farms that get E. coli contamination and things into their greens or broccoli. There's been spinach.
Sure.
That's the most common stuff, hand washing.
But if you brine ferment those things,
Kills everything.
you're good to go.
Except for the lactic acid bacteria, which we like.
Yeah. So we're going to grate some feta over this, and we're just going to use a grater. This is a really hard form of feta. Sometimes you can find softer. Anything, you can buy crumbled in the store and recreate this. You, by all means, don't have to sprout anything. You could use any lettuce that you like on here. So it's a template. We're saying we like sweet potatoes and avocados. Beyond that, go for it. You want blue cheese on it? Put blue cheese on it. All of our recipes are really templates. It was really challenging for us. One of the most challenging things about writing the book was actually writing the recipes, because we don't necessarily cook that way. and it's always changing. And there was times where we had to just kind of stop ourselves at some point and be like, well, yes, we found a better way and we like it more like this, but our publisher will kill us if we keep changing the recipes. So we really encourage people to use them as templates, learn the techniques, and then from there, really to play with the recipes as they are. So like this, say we run out of feta, like we'll turn it into something else. But this is how it is on the menu at the moment, and this is also what is in the book. So that's kind of how we finish that salad. So again, I mean, really kind of rustic. Like you don't really know what's in there, but that's kind of the fun of it. Is you can do it at your dinner party and be like, see, I made you this beautiful salad. You're not sure what's on it, and I didn't screw up the plating of it because I just covered it completely. That if you take nothing else from this today, just great cheese over the top of everything, and it'll look beautiful. You want to take the cheese, Caitlin? Thanks.
These guys look hungry.
Yeah, you guys can start plating.
Does anybody have any more questions?
Going back to the ingredients that you said that you just pick up in bulk, is there ever a situation where you grind it and then you just realize it doesn't work, or it's gone, the flavor's just wrong, or it's too similar, and you have to just throw a huge amount away? Can you repeat the question?
Sure, we're being asked if we've ever picked up a huge batch of vegetables, taken the time to peel them, brine ferment them, sit on them, and then realize that they're not delicious.
All the time, and it's always our fault when it happens. It's because it's actually the reason is if we buy something that looks beautiful, and this happens at the farmers markets a lot, it looks awesome, and you didn't really taste it enough, and you didn't really pay attention that the center is woody or bitter, and then you wait 2 months and you have this awesome pickle, and then it all goes in the garbage. And that happens
It's happened.
more than it should have.
Yeah.
Not frequently,
We often find something to do with it.
but there have been like 60 liters at a time of things that we've bought in quantity that have been not usable.
We just figure we're feeding the compost bin every now and again.
Yeah.
We have to like find a way to think it's okay, and we're like, this would be really good for the earth or wherever it's going. But I mean,
Did you say that?
I did. That just happened. I say that. But something that we've seen is if the texture's not great, we'll also be like, okay, let's see if we can save it first. There's times where it's like absolutely unsalvageable, and you're just like, this is not delicious. I'm not spending my time on this. It's not worth it. It'll be fine in the compost.
We'll catch ourselves
C'est la
sometimes with like
vie.
something that's maybe not perfect or a little bit mediocre. We'll be like, maybe we could like roast it and then put some like sauce on it or something, and then it might be, and it's
And
like,
then
no,
we're like,
you
no.
don't, just, there's no point in starting with something unless it's really good to begin with.
That's the thing, is you're never gonna, in the world of like fermentation or something like that, if you don't start with something delicious, you're not gonna end up with something delicious. So like Nick said, we make the mistake if we are trying to make something delicious that's ultimately not starting that way. It becomes a challenge, and we sometimes just have to kind of pull the cord on that one. But we have had instances where like squash may not have the best texture, and so we pureed it into this like fermented paste that we've actually then recreated.
Turned into like a signature thing, yeah.
Yeah, and we use it as a bread dip.
Whole butternut squash that it would keep its texture if you don't leave it out, but it fermented, it was
So
a little bit
far.
warm in the fall that week, whatever. So the texture of the squash got really soft, and we ended up pureeing it, and now it's like this awesome bread dip,
Now we actually ferment things for it.
To
so
puree, yeah.
sometimes, we learn a lot out of, mistakes or things that not intended for, that something wasn't intended for. I would say we probably learn the most from that sometimes.
Yep.
And then from there we can, we create all these new things based on it. And it's laughable at some point because you're like, oh, remember when we tried to throw that away? And we're like, but we're, 2 years later, we're then still creating that same exact thing. So we should marinate all that.
Nice.
Yeah, so it does happen, but we try to find the good in it and not waste too much. It's really something that we stand tried and true behind at the restaurant, is finding a way to use more or less everything, because it kind of breaks our heart to throw away something that could be used to feed people. So we do our best to make use of as much of an ingredient as we can.
Anybody else?
With such a thriving chef community in San Francisco, is there a lot of learning back and forth between different restaurants, or chefs coming into your restaurant, or you guys?
We steal whatever we can from other people.
We're really lucky these days, like you said, we have a great community of friends and colleagues, and what 10 years ago, there was a lot more like secrets in the culinary world. 20, 30 years ago, people guarded their kind of, their signature dishes really
That era
close
is
to their
over.
heart. That era is very over, and a lot of it, I mean, you guys can all definitely understand this, is like technology and the web and all of these things. It's like every recipe's out there. You want to know how this person made their custard. Well, most likely you can Google it, which is now like a verb, which is great. And you can find out most things. And so I think that with that sort of kind of condensing of the world in general has allowed a lot of people to just kind of break down their walls in that way. And there's so many new things going on and so many chefs that are playing that we are lucky enough to have friends kind of who we bounce ideas off of all the time. We were lucky to go to a friend's restaurant opening last night, and we were sitting at a table with some of our chef friends. We spent half the time being like, well, what did you do with that? And I mean, totally nerding out. Like, it's full on like food nerd central. And we get really excited about it. Like, I ground the chicken and then I steamed it and then I shoved it in the rice. It was like katsuobushi. And it's like, well, what if you did it with? And like, there's a few other people who are sitting at our table that are not chefs, and they're just like, you can see the birds just chirping. I mean, they're interested. They're like, can we talk about something else? And so, when we get together with those people, that's kind of what we talk about. And we had a phone call on the way here, a friend who's going to start making kefir, a chef friend, yeah. And he's like, hey, can you tell me what you guys have been doing? Because I know you've been doing kefir for a while. And it's like, of course. I mean, yeah, sure. And I'm going to call you and ask you, like, how do you make your paprika salami taste so good? And how long are you paddling it for? And so, yeah, we're really lucky to have that relationship these days. We feel really fortunate to have it.
About bread, since bread is such a big part of food in general, and especially Tartine with the association with the bakery, with the kind of surge in
I'll take it over.
in gluten-free menus and dishes and things like that. How do you guys see that? What's your take on people who choose to be gluten-free for not because of dietary reasons, but because they just choose to?
I think everyone has a choice on what they eat. Like, I, for instance, have to taste a lot of gluten, but for full disclosure, like, I do not eat the bread at the restaurant. I will taste it if they've made a new loaf or really cool grains in it, but it doesn't make me actually feel great. This took years of not feeling great to kind of figure out what was going on, and so I just don't do that to my body. But when I go out to eat, like, I'm also like, I know if something's hidden in there, like, I know enough about food to be like, I bet you that's got that in that. Or also just to ask, and like, I'll order something else. Like, my only issue is when people always want what they can't have. So you're like, well, this dish you can't have because it has, like, of the 9 components in it, 5 of them do have gluten in it, but they want that dish anyways. And it's like, let me give you something that you can have as we intend it to be. We'll pull stuff out, like, whatever, that's fine. People have dietary restrictions, like, we deal with it all the time. No big deal. But like, let us try to curate for you so that we can guide you in the best way so that you actually have an experience that might be as much as we intended it to be, at least as much as we intended it to be, instead of like having to recreate, something on the spot that has nothing to do with anything that we're doing. But some of our most fun moments are when someone's like, well, I'm this, that, and the other thing, and they have like, serious health issue and they can't have this or that. And like on the spot, we have to come up with a dish, and sometimes it ends up being, not always, but sometimes it ends up being the best dish of the night because you just have to really be on your toes and you get to just kind of make something totally different. So it kind of has both ends to it. But there are nights where it's like 90% of the people have some sort of allergy or aversion, and it does start to wear on you at some point because you're just like, really? Are you allergic to onions, or you just don't like onions, Or you get the gluten-free people who then eat the bread, and you're just like, I don't totally understand this one. But you know what? It's like, we all get our choices, we all get to be who we are, and so it's just, as much as, we can, we just try and let people do their thing. There's only so much you can do about it, And there's only so much energy you can spend being frustrated by it. It's really a waste of time most of the time, so, yeah.
You're doing great.
You're doing great. You look great. Yep. Anyone else? Does anyone avidly cook at home?
Anyone what?
Avidly cook at home? Yeah? Hence why most of you are here, but that's great. That's something that we feel is missing a lot from kind of our modern landscape, and we hope that people are getting back to. And that's a huge reason why we put that big technique section in the front.
I can serve it up there.
It's just to give people even more of an opportunity to play at home. It's like if you want to make the yogurt, you can. You can also buy it because there's really good yogurt in the marketplace. But if you want to know how, it's all kind of in the, not all, but a lot of it's in the book. And it's definitely not all encompassing, but it's kind of the starting guide to utilizing the techniques that are in the recipes in the back of the book. But yeah.
Do you have substitutes for some of your ingredients? Like, it'd be really hard to get the pickled walnut.
You can order them on Amazon.
Oh.
So what's interesting about the pickled walnuts is not something we created at all. And most of the things in the book are not things that like, we just had some sort of like amazing epiphany, That's just not how it is. It's like, oh, all over parts of Britain, people are eating this with boiled meat, like as we speak. Do you need these? Do you need this? Do you need everything? Do you want this? Do you want this? This is Caitlin. She's one of our sous chefs.
Hi.
Life would not be the same without her. So you can order them, and they come in a jar.
What was the question?
Amazon Prime. She's asking, do we have a lot of substitutes in the book for hard to find ingredients? And we do. And some of them, it won't always be stated exactly, but it's we tried to give kind of a general idea of what it might be like. And we didn't actually put a sourcing section in our book, mainly because most people are so internet savvy these days that they'll just go on their Google homepage and check it out. So most things can either be bought or some sort of substitute can be made, yes. It's few and far between on the things that can't at all.
All right, well, everyone, thank you all so much for coming. If we could please thank Courtney and Nick for this wonderful
Thank
demo.
you, guys.